You down with ADP? No, we are not down with your ADP. These are our top 10 most overvalued fantasy football players according to the ADP next on The Flex.
You are now listening to The Flex on the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network. Subscribe now and tune in every week for all the advice you need to win your fantasy football league. And now, your hosts, Josh Rodriguez and AJ Kelly.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to The Flex presented by Fantasy Holics, your new go-to podcast for redraft fantasy football leagues. I'm Josh Rodriguez with AJ Kelly. We're going to be here with you all season long, giving you advice on drafting, setting lineups, waiver wire pickups, and honestly, we're just here to have a good time. AJ, how's it going, man? How are you?
Josh, it's going great now that it is fantasy football season. The NBA playoffs are over. The NHL playoffs are over. All attention right now. Fantasy football. It's next.
It is next. We got to change the name of our group chat now. I know we had something that was an ode to college basketball, but it's over, man. It's time to revert it back to fantasy football in my mind.
Where the group chat started, the fantasy football, it's only right to take it back to its rightful title.
That is true. For those of you who do not know who AJ and I are, we actually have had fantasy football podcasts in the past. We hosted one dedicated to our own mega league, like a 96-team football league. Don't ask how that works. It'll take too long to explain. Way back in like 2013, 2014, we had a podcast on the Fantrax podcast network called The Flex on Fantrax. And now we're bringing The Flex over here to Fantasy Holics. And we are not the only podcast on Fantasy Holics. Be sure to tune into the Fat Boys Dynasty podcast for all your dynasty needs. Seth Berger hosts DWF, which stands for Defense Wins Fantasy for IDP leagues. I see DWF and in my head goes drafting with friends. I don't know why. But that's what I think when I see it. And then we'll have more shows on the way. If we're not your cup of tea, maybe somebody else will be. You can follow Fantasy Holics on Instagram and TikTok at Fantasy Holics Podcast, Twitter at Fantasy Holics 1, Facebook, just search Fantasy Holics, one word. And subscribe and listen to our podcast and the other podcasts. Give 5 stars on Apple, on Spotify. Leave a comment or review. AJ, are you ready to get started with the first episode of The Flex?
Let's get into it.
All right, let's get into Trust, Marry, Kill.
Trust, marry, or kill. Trust one, marry one, kill one. Well, not really kill. You get it.
All right, this is a Trust, Marry, Kill ADP value edition. So I'm going to give AJ 3 players at a specific position. And this is based off the value, not who he likes more. So if I ask him, hey, do you like Christian McCaffrey or AJ Dillon more? Like, it's not, whether or not who's a better football player. It's the value in which they are being drafted at, their ADP. Let's get into it. First category, ADP value at the QB position. Trust, marry, kill. Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr, and Kirk Cousins.
This is a tough one to start right off the bat, but I envision these are 3, I think, really similar quarterbacks. You know what you're getting with these 3, but I do think Derek Carr has a little bit more upside than these other 2 this year. So I'm going to come out and I'm going to marry Derek Carr right off the bat. Added Devontae Adams. Obviously, we know what he has with Renfro and Darren Waller. And I think it's going to be a little bit of the division that he's in. Not so much the defenses that he's going to have to be playing against. I'm a Broncos fan. I like the Broncos defense, obviously. But I think they're going to play competitive games against the Broncos, against the Chargers, against the Chiefs. And they get a lot of those on the schedule. So I'm going to marry Derek Carr for that at round 10, pick 3. QB 13 is his ADP off the board right now. And these other ones, Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins, I envision as just very similar. So for that reason, Stafford is the higher cost right there. I'm going to kill Matt Stafford, maybe a little bit of the Super Bowl hangover coming off. We'll see what that offense does with Cam Akers and he's healthy headed into the season. And then I'll trust Kirk Cousins based off of that. Obviously, we know what he can do with Justin Jefferson, with Adam Thielen. So I'm going to marry Derek Carr, trust Kirk Cousins, kill Matthew Stafford based off the price.
All right, so I understand that we're doing this based off the price, and I'm typically somebody who does wait for my fantasy quarterback towards the end of the draft, typically round 11, 12, even 13. I wait very late. The only quarterback I have never waited for and will continue to not wait for is my boy, Matthew Stafford, and that's because I know he's going to sling the rock around. And if you can tell me I can get Matthew Stafford in round 8, the man had 41 touchdowns last year, and I understand that you can get value at another position, but I am somebody who likes to get my starting lineup set first. I draft 3 running backs right off the bat. That's what I do. Don't ask why. I'm just old school like that. But if I can get Matthew Stafford, somebody who in my head, can give me at least 20 fantasy points week in and week out, just kind of set it and forget it, I'm going to go for it, man. In my mind, my receivers are set, my running backs are set. I'll probably have my tight end by then and a backup. I have no problem reaching for Matthew Stafford in the 8th round as my QB1. I mean, he was QB5 last year. He's been in the top 5 plenty of times in his career in fantasy football. Obviously, I don't have the stats right here to back it up, but I do know off the top of my head that he has finished there. I think he's worth it. I'm going to trust Kirk Cousins. He's somebody who is sneaky under the radar, can give you a solid week almost every week. There are times he has duds. That's to be expected when you have somebody who's drafted in round 11. He had 33 touchdowns last year. I can pretty much pencil him in for about 28 to 33-ish touchdowns this year without even thinking about it. And I'm going to kill Derek Carr for the simple fact that even though he has Devontae Adams, I have a very hard time believing that offense is going to change dramatically to the point where he's just throwing more touchdown passes per game. Derek Carr is a very good football quarterback. I'm not really sure if he's still a very good fantasy football quarterback. I'm not saying his numbers aren't going to improve a little bit, but 23 touchdowns last year, it's not enough for me to believe that he's going to make a big jump this year when he's been in the league for years now. We know who he is. He's solid. He's efficient. You have Hunter Renfrow there with Devontae Adams. He has weapons, like you said, Waller, but I just don't trust the fact that even at round 10, which is the round before Kirk Cousins, that he's going to outperform Cousins or anybody else you can get after him.
I think he's also going to benefit from Josh McDaniels coming in, though. I think you see what that does with the offense. Like you said, how I do expect him to take a jump up from the 23 touchdowns. He's never been that guaranteed at least 2 touchdowns a game type guy. But I think if there's ever a year for him to take that leap, I think it's this year.
I think so too, but I just don't see it happening. And I trust Matthew Stafford, man. And Matthew Stafford's like my fantasy football crack. I cannot get enough of Matthew Stafford. If I were to list like my favorite fantasy football players of all time, Matthew Stafford is my quarterback. I don't know why. Just always had a man crush on him when it comes to fantasy football. All right, let's move on to the running back position. Trust, marry, kill, ADP value. Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, and Cam Akers.
This one I don't hesitate as much. I think I have this one. I look at this one and it jumps off the page to me. I'm going to marry Cam Akers. I'm going to trust Zeke Elliott, and I'm going to kill Saquon Barkley. Saquon had the worst year, not stats-wise, because obviously Cam Akers didn't play, but you watch Cam Akers run in the playoffs and he looked good, and he tore his Achilles a few months before the season, and he came back and played in the playoffs. So we're talking about a guy that looked good, looked explosive running the ball, just a couple months removed from a torn Achilles. And now he gets a full offseason to get more healthy. He gets in practice with the team. That offense is still going to be really good. They bring in Allen Robinson. That's just another threat that the Rams offense adds that's going to have to be taken care of. They did draft Kyron Williams, but he's not going to cut into that this year, I don't think. And I think Darrell Henderson's going to be getting hurt again at some point. That's kind of been the knock on him. He was good while he was playing.
Darrell Henderson getting hurt.
Yeah, he was really good in that Rams offense. So you look at, okay, if he was that productive,
right,
I think Cam Akers can be more productive in the same role. And at their ADP, I'm getting him at the cheapest of the cost. He's right behind Zeke. And Saquon's the most expensive. He's in the worst offense of the bunch. We haven't seen it these last few years from him. He's gotten injured. He kind of looks like he doesn't have the pop that he had when he first came in. I would like to see him bounce back, but in this scenario, I'm definitely going to kill Saquon, trust Zeke, marry Cam.
Yeah, Saquon's like a stripper hologram. Like, it looks good from a distance and you want to go touch it, but then when you get there, it just kind of disappears. Like, second round, Saquon Barkley, like, that ceiling to me, if he could be my RB2 and he could be everything that I thought he could be, it would be absolutely perfect. I just don't trust him to stay healthy. I don't trust Daniel Jones. I don't trust the New York Football Giants, who just so happen to be my favorite football team. I'm going to kill Saquon Barkley. I'm going to trust Zeke Elliott. And I'm going to marry Cam Akers. We have the same exact trust, marry, kill here. Zeke, I looked this up and it shocked me. He was the number 7 PPR running back last year. 12 touchdowns, 4.2 yards per carry. I don't know why this didn't process in my head. Like, if you would have asked me before I looked this up to do research for this show, I'd be like, yeah, Zeke had a down year. Even though he did, he was still the number 7 PPR running back with Tony Pollard back there. And there's like this perception out there that I wouldn't say wash, but he's not the Zeke that we're used to, and he's not as productive, which might be true in theory, but he's still a very solid fantasy football running back.
I think the perception is just where he was drafted last year. He was drafted to be that RB3, RB4 type player. So
good point.
You have one down season from that. Like you said, he finished the RB7, but when you're expecting RB3 numbers, RB7 is still good. That's still an RB1 in any fantasy football league that you're playing, even if you're in an 8-man league. But when you draft him for the RB3, even if he underperforms at all, you're like, that's it. I got to get this guy out of my roster. I never want to see him again, because you're investing that high pick in him and you weren't getting the production you were expecting. And then Pollard cutting into it. That's just what it was with him, I think. So I think if you're going to be getting him in round 3, forget about it. If in your situation where you're going running back, that's a flex.
That is a flex. That is the flex, baby. We need a sound effect whenever we say the name of the show on the show. Like an air horn or something like that. But yeah, you're right. If I go running back, that's my flex. But also Cam Akers could be my flex, and that's way more appealing to me because that offense to me is just going to score like it did last year. It's going to be one of the better offenses in the league. I know Odell's not there right now. Robert Woods is gone, but you bring in Allen Robinson. Cooper Kupp is one of the best wide receivers in football. I expect him to get ample amount of opportunity. I'm not saying he's going to be Todd Gurley in that offense, but it's hard to say no to that. I don't care if it's Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson. Like, to me, I am a fantasy football player who I do pay attention to the skill of the athlete. I do pay attention to the ability of the player, but I think system and coaching has a lot to do with whether or not I want you on my team, and Cam Akers just fits all of that. And to me, I would absolutely marry him given these 3 choices. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. ADP value at the wide receiver position. Trust, marry, kill. Michael Thomas, Adam Thielen, and Hunter Renfrow.
This one, a little bit similar. I think my answer is going to be a little bit similar to what we saw with the quarterback. I married Derek Carr in that one. I'm going to marry the wide receiver tied to him right here, and I'm going to marry Hunter Renfrow with that. The cheapest of the bunch, but I also think the upside is there with adding Josh McDaniels. I mean, we saw what Josh McDaniels did with Julian Edelman. Now, granted, Tom Brady was throwing him the football, so that's a lot tied to that out of the slot. But if there anything that is going to get the schemes for Hunter Renfrow, now Davante Adams is going to command a lot of those targets, but Carr's going to trust Renfrow in the red zone. Obviously, you trust Davante Adams in the red zone too. So there are a lot of people you could trust in the red zone in the Raiders offense. But given that, I'm going to marry Hunter Renfrow. I don't think I can trust Michael Thomas at this highest ADP coming off. We haven't seen him play football in over a year. We're not sure what the Saints quarterback situation is going to be like. I like Jameis. We know Jameis goes out there and slings it. Hell, he threw 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions one year. He's not going to be phased. If there's one thing Jameis is going to do, it's going to be throw the football if they ask him to. And if Kamara's suspension, if Michael Thomas starts the year healthy, if Kamara gets suspended, we know a lot of those targets are going to be going to Thomas. But I just can't bring myself to trust him, given that we haven't seen him play football lately. So based off of that, I'll kill Michael Thomas, trust Adam Thielen as the guy that's left, while marrying Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, this is 2 out of 3 for us. I'm going to marry Hunter Renfrow, trust Adam Thielen, kill Michael Thomas. Listen, Michael Thomas with Drew Brees was, I don't know if he was ever wide receiver 1, but he was damn near close to it. I know he led the league in receptions. But like you said, I don't know what I'm getting with this Saints offense. And if it's Jameis Winston, it's basically like a horse that's gone crazy, kicking everything and running around the barn. That's what the Saints offense, that's what I think of. It's just wildness. You just can't predict it. You can't put your finger on what the hell's going to happen. So I'm staying the hell away from the Saints offense, maybe with the exception of Kamara. Maybe we'll get into that later. And I'm going to kill Michael Thomas. I don't know what he looks like now. He's been out of the game for a while, so I'm just not comfortable there. Trusting Adam Thielen, you know what you're going to get for him. He had 10 touchdowns last year while he missed 5 games, so who knows what he would have given you if he gave you a full season. He was wide receiver 28. If he can stay healthy, I still think he can be productive. He might be on the back 9 of his career right now, but I still think given that offense with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson on the opposite side, he's going to give you some decent stats there. And listen, I know I just said everything I said about Derek Carr, but it doesn't mean that I don't think that his receivers are valuable. Hunter Renfrow, round 7, pick 6 is an absolute steal. I cannot believe
that's a PPR stud.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How is he going in round 7 after what he did last year? And I understand a lot of it came towards the back end of the year. He had 9 touchdowns overall, 5 in the last 5 weeks, but he had 6 receptions a game. He obviously formed enough of a connection with Derek Carr to get an extension in the offseason. Even with Davante Adams there, they are 2 different types of receivers, and I think that he's Derek Carr's blanket. Devontae Adams might take a few red zone targets away, but Hunter Renfrow is always going to get the receptions that he's going to get with Derek Carr as long as they are on the same team. I have no doubt in my mind he's going to put up similar stats to what he did last year. If you can get him in the 7th round, that's an absolute steal. I have no idea why the sleeper app is sleeping on him.
If there's one thing Hunter Renfrow is going to do, it's get open.
Yeah.
He will be open.
Exactly. All right, last trust, marry, kill ADP value at the tight end position. Dalton Schultz, Dawson Knox, Pat Freiermuth.
This one I'm going straight down the list. I'm going to pay up the premium here on the ADP with 3 rounds early in Dalton Schultz. I'll marry Dalton Schultz, trust Dawson Knox, and I'm going to kill Pat Freiermuth. Mitch Trubisky is starting as the QB1 in Pittsburgh. Mitch gets some unwarranted, he gets a lot of hate.
Yeah, he does.
If there's anyone, I think Mike Tomlin can make him respectable, and I think he can actually have certain levels of success in that offense, I'll say, but I'm still going to kill Pat Freiermuth. Dalton Schultz had 800 yards, 8 touchdowns last year, and Amari Cooper just left town. So all the targets those targets got to go somewhere. Dak loves him. He was a great safety. He was a great safety blanket for Dak. He looked to him a lot. So I'm going to pay the premium. Marry Dalton Schultz. I'll trust Dawson Knox. A lot of his fantasy production last year, 9 touchdowns is what he had. I think he failed to crack 600 yards. 587 on the yards. He was a touch shy of that. And I think you're going to see more Gabriel Davis this year. They're going to command him throughout the full season rather than just coming on late. So marry Schultz, trust Knox, kill Freiermuth.
Okay, so I'm going to kill Freiermuth with you. We're going to do it together. I just don't trust Mitch Trubisky. I feel bad. He's like the redheaded stepchild who everyone just kind of like knocks around. And I feel really bad for him because I think he got a raw deal in Chicago with Matt Nagy there. But at the end of the day, I still don't trust him enough to deliver any consistency with his receivers and especially the tight end. I think Freiermuth is going to be one of those, streamers who you can plug and play and maybe you get lucky one week and he has a touchdown or two. So I'm going to kill him. I am going to marry Dawson Knox. He had 9 touchdowns last year, was a tight end 8, and a lot of his production came within the first few weeks of the season. I understand that, but I do think another year with Josh Allen, another offensive coordinator, Dable's now with the Giants. I'm interested to see if they use him a lot more in the end zone. I expect him to do so. This is just a hunch. This is not me like giving you some in-depth analysis of what their offense is going to look like going forward this year. This is like kind of like a sleeper pick, kind of like I have a feeling that Dawson Knox is going to end up being a top 5-ish tight end in fantasy football. And Dalton Schultz, I understand what you're saying about Amari Cooper's gone. I guess it's more of a Dak thing for me. If I'm being completely honest with you, and that offense, I think they're still going to try to commit to the run. You have CeeDee Lamb there. I'm not saying Dalton's going to have a bad year, but in round 5, the first pick of round 5, that's when I'm getting a wide receiver. That's when I'm getting, some people are getting their second running back. I'm not sure if I would reach for him in round 5. I'd rather wait round 8, where Dawson Knox is at ADP 90, and grab him there. All right, so that does it for Trust, Marry, Kill. Now let's get into the meat of the episode where AJ and I, we combined our brains and we're going to give you our 10 most overvalued players according to their ADP. Are you down with ADP? No, not with you. We are not. Let's do it.
10.
Coming in at number 10 is DK Metcalf. His ADP is 44. He's wide receiver 15. I'll speak for myself here. Russell Wilson's gone. That's all I have to say. I know he's great. I understand it. I understand he's a number 1 wide receiver out in Seattle. I get that. But to me, it matters who's throwing him the football. And if it's not Russell Wilson, he's not worth drafting that high. I don't care how talented you are. That's all I have to say about that. I know the logic's very simple. I know the logic is very reductive, but I think sometimes fantasy football can be reductive, and I think it's really that simple. There's no way I'm drafting him at his ADP right now, so I'm going to say DK Metcalf, number 10.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. People are drafting him as their wide receiver 1. Really, if you're going running back, he's right on that cusp of the wide receiver, and I would not feel comfortable trotting him out as my wide receiver 1 in any lineup that I'm going through, plain and simple. Like I said, I'm a Broncos fan. I watched a lot of Drew Lock. Drew Lock wasn't totally incompetent at all times. He might have flashes in the pan that he'll have here, but I don't think he's going to get the ball to DK on a consistent basis. I think Tyler Lockett will be better for that offense, believe it or not. I think the down the field balls, Drew Lock put a couple on the money, but we saw a lot of those. Russ drops them into DK on a dime and they're walking touchdowns. I don't think that's going to be happening anymore. And then you have all the contract issues that are going on with DK right now. And I just don't think you can really look at that and be comfortable saying this is where I want to draft this guy.
9.
In at number 9 is Breece Hall, New York Jets rookie running back. His ADP is 43, which is a pick before DK Metcalf. AJ, I'll let you take this one first.
I just don't want to get crazy here. I mean, it's a rookie running back. It's a rookie running back on the Jets that have a second-year quarterback in Zach Wilson that also just drafted Michael Carter. Now, Breece Hall is better than Michael Carter. There's no question about that. But I don't think they're going to completely just throw him to the curb and say, this is, you're getting 25 touches a game instantly. Where you're drafting this guy, RB 21, ADP 43. He's your every week starter if you're drafting him as that. And as an every week position locked starter, maybe I want to draft him as a flex option, but I just don't want to get ridiculous. Now the Jets, they did vastly improve their offensive line, which does bode well for him, but I just don't think you can look at where he's going and say, this is who I'm comfortable making picks or who I'm taking him.
I agree, man, and I like Breece Hall a lot. I have higher expectations for the Jets this year than I've had in previous years. I think they're going to, I wouldn't say turn a corner, but I think they're going to be way more competitive this year than they've been in the past. And even still, at 43, that's the middle of round 4. That is, like you said, AJ, like that's a lot of people's RB2, sometimes depending on your draft strategy, RB1. There's no way I'm taking him that high. You have Michael Carter, who I still think deserves some touches. It's not going to be, an 80-20 split there. It's going to be more 60-40 maybe. Wouldn't surprise me it's 50-50. I'm sure out of camp they're going to say some things like maybe it's 65-30. Whatever it's going to be, it's still the New York Jets who still haven't proven that they can score the football on a consistent basis. So this is all off of hype, and I understand he's a very talented player. There's a lot of hype with him coming out as a rookie. The early rounds are so valuable, you cannot miss, and I am not taking a chance with him.
The running backs that are immediately behind him, Elijah Mitchell, J.K. Dobbins, A.J. Dillon, I would rather take all of those guys over Breece Hall. Even Damian Harris.
Yeah, you know what you're getting with them for sure. It's too much of a gamble for me, and I'm someone who likes to take risks and gamble, but not like this.
8.
Number 8 on our most overvalued ADP is running back Alvin Kamara. His ADP is 16. That's the second round, RB 11. AJ, what do you think of Alvin going into the season?
I think a lot of this one right now is hanging in the balance with, is he going to be suspended or not? That's the reason he made this list, because if you're drafting whenever it's coming up, if that's not resolved at ADP 16, RB 11, if he's going to be missing 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, you can't invest an early second round pick in that.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, again, this is the second round we're talking. And then also, this is a new Saints team. There's a different quarterback, different system. We know that Alvin Kamara is one of, if not the best pass-catching running back in the league, that's for sure. But we don't know if he's going to be used the way that Sean Payton used him. So there's a lot of question marks here. Second round, you're either getting your RB1 or your RB2, depending on how you draft. And again, you have to be certain with these players. You cannot take gambles. That's how I play, at least in the first 4 or 5 rounds. And I'm just not comfortable taking someone who might be suspended. If he's not suspended, is coming into a situation where I'm not really familiar what's going on with that offense in the first place.
7.
Number 7, Kyle Pitts. His ADP is 28. He's predicted to be the tight end 3 according to the Sleeper app, and this is absolutely ridiculous to me, man. Matt Ryan's gone. He's not there anymore. I don't see it happening. I understand he's really talented. I understand the hype going into last season. I actually drafted him in a bunch of my leagues, and I wasn't too disappointed. He didn't get in the end zone at all last year, and I think he's going to see some pay dirt more this year, but you cannot justify having him over George Kittle to me. That doesn't make any sense to me. He's way overvalued. I wouldn't mind getting him maybe in the 5th or 6th round, but right now in the beginning of the 3rd, that's ridiculous.
1 touchdown last year. He had over 1,000 yards, but 1 touchdown, and Matt Ryan is gone. They're going to be starting Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder, the rookie QB. We don't know which way they're going to be going, if Ridder's going to get that job from Mariota come camp time. I think that just speaks to the lack of depth at the tight end position, where we've grown accustomed to seeing these early tight ends fly off the board in Kelsey, Kittle, Pitts. We see the production that these guys put up, and everyone gets obsessed saying, oh my God, I need to draft a tight end immediately. Dalton Schultz, we talked about in the Trust Mary Kill segment. Right. Dalton Schultz was a throwaway pick last year. He was a top 12 tight end 1. Last year, he went in probably the high teen rounds of your draft. You don't need to reach on a tight end that's going to score 1 touchdown.
6.
Number 6, we have A.J. Brown, ADP 25, wide receiver 9. He is one of the more talented wide receivers in the league to me. I have great admiration for him. I think he's a fantastic wide receiver, but going to the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts there, not really sure how that's going to work out. AJ, what are your thoughts on A.J. Brown?
This one, I just don't get the jump in ADP. I get that he's talented, but we watch this Philadelphia Eagles passing offense and we're excited about his move to this. I think what we're going to see is similar to the production he put up in Tennessee. Tennessee was a run-first offense, and we saw the production he put up, which was we saw he was drafted, I think, around like the wide receiver 20 range last year. That was kind of what you were looking at, late second. And now we're talking wide receiver 9 just because the trade to the Eagles. I think you look at it and you say, oh, the Eagles have a plan to use him. They know what they're going to do with him. They traded for him for a reason. I just don't see this big of a jump being made in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to be a decent quarterback this year. I think he's being a fantastic fantasy football quarterback, but I don't see the consistency of him and AJ connecting every week. We have yet to see that from Jalen in the passing game, at least. And, it's hard for me to believe that's going to just the acquisition of AJ Brown is going to change that. I don't know if I would say AJ is going to have a bad season, but if you're going to draft him first pick of the third round, there are other options there for you that I think I would rather have at least. Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. You know what you're getting with these guys. I mean, especially those two that I just named right off the back, they're right behind him. It's not to say they're better football players. You can argue whether they are or not, but they're definitely in better situations with better quarterbacks and better offenses and more consistent offenses. So this makes no sense. This is way too high for A.J. Brown.
You have Tom Brady and Justin Herbert throwing the ball to those two guys that you mentioned. Like you said, just right off the bat. A.J. Brown's a talented wide receiver, but at that cost in that offense, and we know the Chargers are going to be going for it on every fourth down, and Herbert's going to be throwing it to Keenan Allen literally so every single time he drops back to pass. Like, you're just going to get more plays from the Chargers offense.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, the way I look at fantasy football, and you will realize this as you listen to the podcast, you are married to your quarterback, you are married to your offense. It doesn't matter how talented, well, it does matter how talented you are. I wouldn't say the talent doesn't matter. But if you don't have that trifecta going, not saying I don't like you, but at this point in the draft, I don't know if I'm drafting you at the wide receiver position. It just doesn't make any sense for me to do so. So to me, A.J. Brown is way too high. I love him as a player, but I don't love his situation for the first pick of the third round.
5.
In at number 5, we have T. Higgins with the ADP of 35, wide receiver 12. This actually shocked me when we both had him when we were talking about this because I like T. Higgins. I had him on my teams last year. I think he's a solid wide receiver, but I think this is just a little too much here. 35 is early fourth round. I think there are better options here. I understand that Joe Burrow kind of came into his own last year. Obviously, the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. There's a lot of hype around that offense, but there's a lot of mouths to feed. You still have Joe Mixon. You still have Jamar Chase. I think T's going to put up some big games like he did last year, but I don't see the consistency where it's, you can start him week in and week out, set it and forget it. Be in some cases, if you're someone like me who drafts their first wide receiver in the fourth round, a wide receiver 1. So I don't know about this one. I think it's a little too high for T.
Yeah, I think you said you had him on your team last year, but you didn't take him in the end of the third or in the beginning of the fourth round. Right. So that's it. Fantasy football is all about basically being the year before the year of that player. That's where you want to be the year before the year that they're getting all the attention, because that's right. Where you want to grab them if that's where the production is going to boost. Like you said, T had some great games, but he's the second fiddle in the receiving corps. He's going to be behind Jamar Chase, and he's the third fiddle in the offense. Joe Mixon's going to take the second fiddle on that one because he's going to be up there in production on running back this year. So how will teams try to adjust to guarding Chase? What will Higgins get versus that? But I think you're drafting him as a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 12. I think I would just rather kind of look somewhere where I could take maybe a first option in an offense that I expect to be equally as good as the Bengals around that. You get their first option rather than the third.
4.
Coming in at number 4, we have Deebo Samuel. This might be a surprise to some people. His ADP is 21, which is the back end of the second round. He's wide receiver 6. Personally, for me, I love Deebo. What he did for the San Francisco 49ers offense was admirable, considering the fact that he probably didn't want to play running back and do everything that he did. And I expect him to have, a fantastic year. I just don't expect the same production we had last year. A lot of that had to do with the fact that he was basically a hybrid running back wide receiver. Now you slide him back to the wide receiver spot. I still think he's valuable. I still think he should go high in the draft. I just don't know if I would take him the back end of the second.
Yeah, we'll see what the Niners do. We'll see how this whole Jimmy G, Trey Lance scenario plays out, but what they're going to do with that. But obviously, we know what Debo can do after the catch. I think he had like 700 plus yards after the catch last year. There was a game where it's like Jimmy Garoppolo threw for 275 yards, and if you took away Debo Samuel's yards after the catch, Garoppolo threw for like 97 yards. Like, it was some insane number. We know what Debo can do, but you're drafting him at the premium of that, and I think you expect a step back. If they go to Lance, is there a learning curve early weeks in the season? What's going on with Debo's trade contract situation? Are the Niners going to end up giving him all that money? We see all the money that these wide receivers are going for. Debo's not going to shortchange himself in getting paid, because like you said, what he did for that offense last year was absolutely insane, lining up at running back, everything that he did. But I think Sleeper just announced that they're keeping him wide receiver only eligibility.
Yep.
So I think that was a lot of things. People loved him last year. It was like, oh, look, he's getting this running back eligibility. Obviously, that can be subject to change if the Niners are still going to be trotting him out there at running back. But we'll see what happens with that, how his trade scenario plays out. But I'm with you. ADP 21, late second round, wide receiver 6 off the board. I'm just not sure about it.
Yeah, and there's just the variable of like not knowing who your quarterback is as of today, June 29th. Now, it can change. In July, there might be some things coming out of camp about how he's being used, and we might know who the quarterback is, and Trey Lance might be looking fantastic in the preseason. I might change my tune. But as of today, that variable of like, is it Trey? Is it Jimmy? How is Trey going to be? It's too much for me to take him at the end of the second.
3.
In at number 3 at overvalued ADP, we have Antonio Gibson. His ADP is 38. He is a running back 17. And honestly, I don't even think he's worth drafting, AJ. I'm done with him. I am done.
Wow,
I'm done. I had so much stock in him last year. I had so much faith in this man last year. And the wild thing is like, by the numbers, he wasn't that bad, but it felt so bad. It felt so wrong. Like, he had a few big games. Maybe they inflated his stats, but there were plenty of games where he was in a running back by committee. He got hurt. I just do not trust Antonio Gibson at all. This is not just overvalued. I am staying the hell away from Antonio Gibson, even if he's sitting me in the face in the 7th or 8th round. No, I'm not even doing that. Not even doing that.
I mean, has anybody's stock dropped faster over the last couple of years? He's
Bitcoin.
Rookie. McKissick.
Antonio Gibson is Bitcoin.
Tag that. He's Bitcoin. McKissick is still there.
I want these third down touches.
Yeah. And guess what? He's going to get a hell of a lot of them with Charlie Checkdown, Carson Wentz playing quarterback. And Ron Rivera just said today that Gibson's probably going to lose goal line touches to Brian Robinson, who they drafted. So the stock is just plummeting. Like you said, I want no parts of him, especially not at ADP 38, late 3rd, early 4th round. Forget about it.
2.
Let's move on to number 2, overvalued ADP. And it's Amari Cooper. His ADP is 50. He's projected to be the 19th wide receiver off the board according to Sleeper app. And for me, I am not touching anything that's coming out of Cleveland. That city is cursed. That franchise is cursed. It is poison. Deshaun Watson's not going to be the quarterback this year. Even if he was, I still would not take him. I don't trust anything coming from that offense. The fact that they have him this high up is baffling to me. There's no way he should be this high. I know he's a very talented receiver, but with the amount of uncertainty going on with that franchise mixed with the fact that Jacoby Brissett is going to be the one who's taking over the helm, this doesn't make any sense to me. I would stay the hell away from Amari Cooper. He's another one I'm not even drafting under any circumstance.
Yeah, I think this is already too high as it is at wide receiver 19. And I'll tell you what, if Watson's hearings and his suspension meetings come back as not being suspended at all, we're going to see his ADP will drop down, go up, whichever way you want to say it. Either way, he's going to be taken earlier than he currently is. And I still think it's too soon for him. But a lot of that is the fact that Jacoby Brissett is on pace to be throwing him the football. And we know what that Browns offense is built around. A good O-line, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
1.
And finally, our number 1 overvalued at their current ADP is Christian McCaffrey, ADP 2, running back 2. AJ, I will let you take it away.
Injuries, injuries, injuries. He's played, 10 games over the last 2 years? I'm not investing the second overall pick in that. I understand that he is a phenomenal football player when he's on the field. Key part of that sentence is when he's on the field.
Right.
You can't win your draft in your first round, but you can lose it. And if McCaffrey comes back and gets hurt again, guess what? You just lost your draft in the first round. You can take Derrick Henry. You could take Dalvin Cook. You could take Najee Harris. I don't care if you're in a full-point PPR league. If you want to take Cooper Kupp, you know what you're getting with those guys. There's too many question marks surrounding McCaffrey this year to invest a second overall pick in him.
Man, you could have said it better. The best ability is availability, and he hasn't had any in the past a couple years. And then let's add on top of that, Sam Darnold's his quarterback. That offense is not something that, you want to be a part of to begin with. I understand that there's a heavy usage with McCaffrey there. He's going to get his touches. But to me, my running back, I want him to be on a team that is going to get in the end zone. He's going to get his red zone touches on a consistent basis. It's not going to be something where it's like, I hope Sam Darnold doesn't throw 4 interceptions today and, McCaffrey doesn't see the end zone because they don't see the football. There are so many other options you can have other than Christian McCaffrey here at number 2. I understand the hype. I understand how good he has been when healthy, but I am shocked that Sleeper has him at number 2. And by far, the biggest risk you'd be taking if you take him at number 2. All right, well, that's going to do it for our first episode of The Flexed. Next week, we're going to have ADP Undervalued. Another segment will be debuted. You can follow the podcast network at Fantasyholics Podcast. We have other podcasts such as the Fat Boys Dynasty podcast. Bo and Brant do a fantastic job. DWF, Defense Wins Fantasy with Seth Berger. He does a fantastic job. Make sure you follow Fantasyholics at Fantasyholics on Facebook, at Fantasyholics1 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Fantasyholics Podcast. Tune in next week. But until then, enjoy draft season, ladies and gentlemen. It has officially begun. We'll catch you next week on The Flex.